General Fred Franks would be standing here, and obviously I'm not General Fred Franks. But he is not with us because of a minor medical situation in the family, and he asked me to extend his greetings and well wishes to all of you, and his regrets that he can't be with us during this reunion and this memorial service. It is our 26th anniversary of Desert Storm, and as we have always done in our ceremonies, our reunions, we come together and honor our fellow American and British soldiers who, in the words of President Abraham Lincoln, gave that last full measure of devotion, doing their duty in service to our nation. And I'd just like to say a special thanks, since our regimental commander is here, say a special thanks to Chaplain Dave O'Connell, Chaplain, for being here with us, who was with the regiment during the operation. And also special thanks again to Chaplain Wayne Lair, our 1st Armored Division chaplain during Desert Storm, who has been our leader of this memorial service year after year after year. And so a special thanks to both of you. As I said, it's fitting and right that we honor at this memorial service those soldiers of our Corps who died in battle and in service to the United States and Great Britain and what our two nations stand for. It is our commitment, long-held commitment as soldiers, to never leave a fallen comrade. And in the context of that thought, that thinking, we of the Corps, and we as soldiers pledged ourselves to our fellow soldiers that we would never forget. And we have not and will not. From those memorial services in the desert to the memorial service on Memorial Day on 27 May 1991 in the chapel at Kelly Barracks in Stuttgart, to these services that have traditionally preceded our reunion dinners, we have remembered. We remember as well those who have fallen in the current set of conflicts, some of whom were 7th Corps veterans with us in Desert Storm, who have gone on and served and given their lives in the more recent conflicts. And we also remember their families, the ones who must endure the pain of their loss. Each year, and this is a tradition in military Army services particularly, that when we have a memorial service, we have a commander who speaks. And this year, it is wonderful, I think, that we have General Don Holder here to be our command speaker. And I'm proud and very honored to have the opportunity to introduce Don. Again, Don commanded the regiment during Desert Storm. He provided our Corps covering force in that attack, and he was, I know very well, in the lead elements of that regiment as they move forward to find and engage and set the battle for those who would follow later into the fighting. Don is a graduate of Texas A&M, graduated there in 1966, and after serving a tour with the 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment along the inter-German border in Germany during the Cold War period, he later served in combat in Vietnam as commander of C Troop, 1st Squadron, 4th Cavalry of the 1st Infantry Division. Don later served as the director of the School for Advanced Military Studies at Fort Leavenworth. And for those of you who are not aware, that was a school that gave us, those young majors most particularly, who had been during a one-year additional study instill with our doctrine and our training and preparation to execute that doctrine. I know personally, I considered those young people who came into my organizations as real teachers and mentors, and Don had a big role for a long time in developing those young people. He also had a big role in developing our warfighting doctrine, the doctrine that became known as airland battle. And it was a doctrine that we prepared to employ during the period that we were in Central Europe. And thank God it did not occur, had the Russians attacked, we would have been following that fighting doctrine. And it was that doctrine that we took into the desert when we deployed and used, I would say, quite successfully in our operations against the Iraqis during Desert Storm. As I said, Don led our covering force, and he was out front of his regiment, with his regiment. And also, I think it would be a failure not to admit, we did not just, in fact, fight and defeat the Iraqi forces, but in that process, we liberated the nation of Kuwait. And that is what we went there for, that's what we went to do, and that's what we accomplished. Later on, Don commanded the 3rd Infantry Division in Germany, and in 1995, he returned to Fort Leavenworth for his 5th tour there, serving as commander of the Combined Arms Center. He retired from active duty in 1997, and rightfully and most deservedly, Don was inducted into the Fort Leavenworth Hall of Fame in 2015. Fellow veterans of the Corps and other guests present, it's a great honor and a great pleasure for me to introduce our memorial service speaker, Lieutenant General Don Holder. And so, Don, if you would come up and give us your words, would be most appreciated.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, General Griffith. It's good to be here. This is the first of these services that I've attended, the first of these reunions that I've attended. It's been a long time since I've seen some of the faces in the room today, and it's great to see you all. Today we remember the losses of the 7th Corps. They were American and British soldiers who fell in Desert Storm. There were 111 of them. That was 26 years ago, but they're still very much a part of us, and we've gathered here to honor their memory. It's important that we do that. Ask people about Desert Storm now, and they'll recall that it was quick and one-sided. They don't generally consider the odds that we faced or the expectations that most people had of how that would come out, nor do they consider the lives that were lost in that effort that we remember so very clearly, and we will remember. We do remember. We will always remember. We know those soldiers. Their losses were real. They were very painful. They struck us powerfully at the time, and they still affect those families, as General Griffith noted. We're going to call their names in a few minutes. That's done here every year, and it's both a measure of respect and a token of acceptance on our part of the sacrifice of those 111 young soldiers, British and American. Acceptance is a natural thing. It comes with time. But we should remember these soldiers freshly today, as they were. They were our friends. They were young, courageous people. They were comrades of ours who worked hard for the same victory that we earned, and they had the same hopes, ambitions, and expectations that we did. This will remain a very personal thing for us. Everyone here today has specific memories of our desert days. All of our soldiers were a special group. They were honorable, courageous, well-motivated men and women. They stuck together exceptionally well. They were, and we were, among the best prepared soldiers that our Army ever committed to battle. an example, one of the who survived the war. General Franks, before the operation, visited a field hospital to see how our sick and injured were doing there. And he ran into Specialist McLemore of B Troop, who was in the hospital for an illness. General Franks was solicitous, of course, asked how things were doing, how he was faring, the state of his health, and all the rest. And in leaving, he said, "Is there anything I can do for you, McLemore?" And McLemore said, "Yes, sir. You can get me out of here today on your helicopter and get me back to B Troop. I don't want those guys to do the operation without me." And you know General Franks, if you've been in this group a while, he put McLemore on the helicopter and brought him back to B Troop. Those were the kind of soldiers we had. Serving with them was an honor, and losing them hurt. It still hurts. Most of us can remember the first reports of the casualties, the sting of that, what it felt like to know that somebody had been hurt and killed. And there were questions, there was always uncertainty. Who was it? How many? Who was hurt? What was going to happen next? We heard about those losses over the radio while we were very busy, or when people came to us who had heard them that way themselves. And we continued to fight. We had to do that. We pushed forward to our objectives as we were expected to do. We learned in the process who had died, what their names were, something about the circumstances, and we went on with our mission a little bit saddened and numbed and a little distracted, but we did the job. Those who died were representative of their units, British and American. The 6 deaths in the 2nd Armored Cavalry Battle Group were pretty much a cross-section of our unit. Our lost soldiers came from the 2nd Squadron, Bomberg, 3rd Squadron, Amberg, Headquarters Troop, Nuremberg, 82nd Engineer Battalion, 7th Corps Engineer Battalion out of Bomberg. They were sergeants and specialists. They were all in their 20s. They came from all over the United States, and they came out of every kind of community that is in the United States. And they died in 3 incidents, miles apart, within the same 24 hours. Shortly after the fighting ended, a day or two after the fighting ended, companies and battalions gathered for memorial services, the memorial services similar to the ones that we do today. There on the field, near where those soldiers fell, I can remember standing under the skies of Kuwait, which were black with smoke, burning oil fields on the horizon all around us, scorched enemy equipment in every direction, and little formations that seemed very, very small in that open desert, of soldiers that were very much affected by the loss of their comrades. Commanders spoke, chaplains offered consolation, friends had things to say. In one of those ceremonies, we had an honor guard that fired 21 shots to honor the dead soldier with live ammunition. They had to fire it into a sand berm. We didn't have blanks. But at the time, it was a very painful thing, and we remember them to this day in that way. 26 years have now passed. We've accepted the deaths as best we can. Life has moved us on to other things, but we bear in mind these fallen friends who lost the chances that we have had. We remember them respectfully, gratefully, and very fondly. Their closest friends have established memorials to each of them, have founded scholarships in their behalf, and gather in their own unit reunions to remember them. We can and we should step back a little today and see things in a broader way. Those soldiers dear to us, friends of ours, whose loss we felt so keenly and who we still see as individuals, are now a part of the great traditions that stretches back to the foundation of our nation. They are a part of that body of self-sacrificing soldiers, brave soldiers who gave their lives for the independence, the goals, the policies of our nation. That's a large thing. They will always serve us in our memories, but they will now serve soldiers who are active today and future generations of soldiers. They are part of something great and magnificent. We must also remember their families today. As General Griffith indicated, I know personally, the pain of those losses does not abate from families. The 2nd Dragoon Battle Group troopers who died averaged 25 years of age. That means that more time has passed since 1991 until now than the years they lived on this earth. And the children born to them in 1991 have now outlived their parents. But to their families, it's still a very real and painful loss. President Lincoln, again, famously wrote to Mrs. Bixby in Boston, who lost several sons in battle, about the solemn pride that must be yours to have laid such a costly sacrifice on the altar of freedom. The families that lost soldiers in Desert Storm can feel that too, and I hope that they do. They have but one son or daughter nowadays to give in many cases, and many of them did that. So our thoughts should be with them and the pain that they live with day to day. Bear in mind those widows, those parents, those children and siblings. They still grieve. They will always miss their sons, daughters, spouses, siblings in ways that we can barely imagine. General George S. Patton was known for expansive statements, and he got it only half right when he said, we should not mourn the deaths of these men. We should be grateful that such men lived. Half right, General Patton. Actually, we should and can do both. We should mourn these losses. These were great people. We should also be proud of them for what they were as men and soldiers and friends. And we should be humbly thankful that they lived and that we shared their company. Thanks.